What's up, everyone? My name is Ethan. Welcome to Splash City. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe. Most of the people who watch this channel are not subscribed. I'd like to try to change that. So if you like the type of content that I produce, please consider hitting that button down below. It would really mean a lot to me. With that out of the way, let's get into today's video, and that is Courtside Chats. This is a new series-ish thing that I'm talking about. If you don't know, this channel used to be called Courtside TV. Just a short couple of months ago, and I changed it because I felt like I wanted to stand out a little bit more, give it a name that would be a little bit more unique and more in line with the theme and the spirit of the channel. So anyway, I talked about that at the time, but I felt that like this was a fun way to kind of bring that back and do something called Courtside Chats, where I just kind of talk about a certain team, kind of ramble on for, 10 to 12 minutes or so is my goal. Hopefully that's the length of this video, because I'm trying to keep them a little bit shorter than I normally have been doing over the past little while. But this is not going to be a thing for every team. I'm not planning to go through all 30 before the season starts or anything. I just kind of want to talk about what's going on around the NBA with a certain team and what might happen with them over the next couple of weeks as we continue along with the offseason. So today's topic is the Philadelphia 76ers. And, Ben Simmons is a big topic right now. Joel Embiid just signed his extension, so kind of wanted to go in on them and kind of talk about where they're at as a team. So let's get into that. So where do I begin here with Philly? Well, I think let's first just talk about Ben Simmons for a second. He is clearly on the trade block. There's been rumors over the past couple of weeks about him, not being on good terms with the team. He might not show up to training camp or to the start of the season. If he is not traded by then, given that he hasn't been returning calls from the team, he hasn't been communicating with the front office and the coaching staff and everything, it seems like he wants to be traded, which honestly, you can't blame him for that, right? Just because of the way that the season ended for him and for the team. It was a scenario where Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid kind of threw him under the bus in a way. It wasn't super explicit, but they did kind of call him out, not by name or anything, but you could kind of read between the lines in their comments and say, this was the reason why we lost this series, blah 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 blah. And there's been trade rumors swirling, and it just feels like it's going to happen, right? And we've had all these reports that we know the Sixers have made him available. Daryl Morey is looking to make a deal, except for the fact that his asking price is absurdly high right now, which no team is going to be coming up to that level of young players and 4 first-round picks and salary match. And it's just a lot that Daryl Morey is asking for right now, right? Which, side note, that is a classic Daryl Morey thing. He does that every time he's making a negotiation. He's always going to ask way too high at the beginning and, hope that somebody comes up there to meet him. And eventually, he'll lower his price more in line with actually what the value is, but still ends up getting more than he maybe otherwise would. So that's the Daryl Morey negotiating tactic. He's been doing it for his entire career as a GM, back when he was with the Rockets and now with Philly. So that doesn't surprise me that the asking price for Ben Simmons is super high right now, and you would expect that it'll go down, eventually until he does end up getting traded. So I don't think the deal is going to be, for multiple young players, first-round picks, blah, 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 blah. It's not going to be a ton back for Ben Simmons, even though his value might be a little bit higher than you might be thinking right now, just because, coming off the end of the season that he had, a lot of people were really writing him off immediately, but he is still a good player, and he does, he's only 25 and signed long-term, so he's got some value out there on the market, despite his flaws as a player. So I do think you can get a decent haul back for Ben Simmons. Let's pivot to what teams might be interested in him. Daryl Morey, rumors say that he wants Damian Lillard, and he wants to do a deal with Portland if eventually, the Blazers and Dame do decide to part ways there. If Dame feels like the front office is not moving in a positive direction, then he may request out. And in that case, Ben Simmons could be potentially the best player that you would get back in a Dame deal. So that's what he's waiting for. I don't know if they'll get to that point, but potentially Portland's an option. Even if they don't trade Dame, you could do a CJ McCollum, packaged with some other younger guys on the roster, and then of course future assets, because the Blazers don't have a ton of young talent on their roster right now. They do have their future picks that they can use to make a trade. So if they're going to be desperate to try to keep Dame happy, I think that would be one that definitely makes sense. You can always, of course, talk about the Warriors as another team. People are going to be talking about them. The questions are going to be there Of course, people are going to talk about the Warriors as a potential fit, and that's going to be a rumor, throughout this entire process because Golden State is a team that has assets to give up, and they're looking to make a win-now trade potentially. Rumors say that they're high on their young guys, on Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, James Wiseman. Kuminga and Moody, it's obviously way too early to tell, but both of them did play pretty well in the Summer League, and Wiseman's a guy who had a rough rookie season, but there's reason to believe that he should improve going forward. So, the Warriors might be hesitant to throw those guys in there, but they do potentially have a decent package. And then you can ask about the potential fit between Draymond Green and Ben Simmons, whether or not you can afford to have them both on the court, as they are, sort of similar players. Of course, there are things that are different about them, but defense-oriented guys who are a little bit lacking in the offensive scoring department, but both, solid passers, both, good playmakers and defenders, and that's really their bread and butter, and neither one of them is a great shooter. So can you afford to survive with both of those guys on the court, and, having that lack of spacing is a question that a lot of people, I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong answer, and honestly we might never know unless we see it, but that's a big topic that's dividing Warriors fans right now, is would that actually work? So I'll leave it at that with Golden State. I already mentioned Portland. Other than that, I think there's a lot of teams out there that would make an offer for Ben Simmons. It just depends on the asking price, of course. We know Minnesota's interested, and I think that's an interesting potential option. I wouldn't think that it would be D'Angelo Russell in the trade. It seems like they're keeping him off limits given his relationship with Karl Anthony Towns, and they just want to keep both of those guys on their team. They view that as their core, along with Anthony Edwards, and I think that makes sense for them to want to do that. So if you are doing a Ben Simmons trade, you're talking potentially Malik Beasley would be like a main piece going back in that deal. You could aggregate that with the salaries of Patrick Beverley and Taurean Prince, who are both new on the team. And you would throw in, potentially some of the other younger guys that are on the roster that are not named Anthony Edwards, and then as well as future assets. I think Minnesota has also a compelling package, maybe not as good as some of the other teams out there, but if Simmons' value continues to decline there, then Minnesota could potentially be an option there with their trade package. So I think those are the main destinations that are out there right now. Like I said, there's plenty more to talk about, but I'll leave it at those three. Other than the Ben Simmons thing with Philly, Joel Embiid did just sign his big extension, which will keep him with the team for, I think he's under contract now for 5 more seasons, because he had next year on the deal, and I believe the extension was for 4 years. So Joel Embiid signed his big extension there, and obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean that he will be on the team for the next 5 years, because of course there could always be a trade, but that is a very good sign that he is comfortable enough with the front office and the direction the team is moving to commit to signing that extension right now, rather than waiting until next offseason, putting the threat of a trade request or leaving in free agency over the franchise's head. He just decided to link up right now and just line up for the future and put in his 4 years right now. So that's good for the team and for him. He gets his paycheck. A guy who does have an injury history, but ultimately is one of the best players in the league when he is healthy. So good for both sides. I think it's a no-brainer to sign Embiid to that extension, and for him, it's a vote of confidence in the organization that he feels like they're going to be moving in a good direction there. So that's the one thing on that. I'm a little surprised that did happen before we have clarity on the whole Ben Simmons situation, but like I said, I guess Embiid just feels like he can trust the front office and what they're doing right now. So that's just a good sign, I think, in general moving forward. Other moves that Philly could potentially make: Tobias Harris's contract is always out there. They could potentially move him. Even though he's making a ton of money, Tobias Harris is a good player, but making upwards of $30 million a season for, what does he have, 3 more years on his deal, I think, 2 or 3. So a while left on Tobias Harris's contract, and he's like I said, he's a good player, a little bit overpaid, tough to trade a guy like that, just because he's useful for you on the floor. But you don't want to be allocating that much of your payroll to a guy who has the limitations that he does. So I think you're going to see his name floated in trade conversations to potentially match for something else, although I somehow doubt that he is going to be traded anytime soon here. And then, the other potential movable pieces that Philly has, Seth Curry, even though I'd hold on to him, I think his shooting on that number is a really good value contract for them. You have some young pieces, of course, Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, who are potential options if you're looking to make a move. But I think that both of those guys are good enough and on rookie deals and can contribute right away. Because Maxey was good last year and he just looked awesome in the summer league. Looks like he's ready to take a leap in his second season. So hold on to him, and Matisse Thybulle has that really high-end defense that you're looking for on a contending team. So I'd hold on to both of those guys. Other than that, you sign on to Drummond on the minimum, which is fine. And this team is looking like, pre-Ben Simmons trade, they haven't really done much with their offseason, but we're obviously expecting something major to go down. And that's the biggest domino that's left on the free agency market right now. So I guess we'll see what happens with that, whenever it does come time for a Ben Simmons deal. But that could potentially cause a lot of teams to pivot to their plan B or plan C or whatever, and that could really move the needle on the rest of the NBA offseason, basically. It feels like a lot of teams are just kind of waiting for that to happen, and then we will see really finalized rosters start to come into view, because there are some teams out there that are kind of waiting for the last pin to drop. So the Sixers are kind of holding all the cards right now. They're waiting for a potential move to come to light, and Daryl Morey's a good negotiator. He always has been, and I think we're going to see a Ben Simmons trade here within the next month at some point. I have no idea when it's going to be. Could be tomorrow, could be 6 weeks from now. But I'm expecting a Ben Simmons deal before next season starts, just because it feels like that bridge has been burned. And yeah, I feel like that's all I have on the 76ers and Ben Simmons. Like I said at the top of the video, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, ring the bell if you want to, leave a comment letting me know what you guys think about the Sixers, their offseason plans, and what would you like to see them do. Who's going to trade for Ben Simmons? I would love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments. Who's gonna make that move? Who's gonna ultimately end up biting that bullet and trading for Ben Simmons? Would love to hear your thoughts on that. But with all that said, I will see you guys in the next one.